Hello pilots, greetings Earthlings. Today I'm going to be reviewing as well as doing a little teardown of the cryo Technologies motor. This is a 40-25 size motor and it is 440 kV. So as a disclaimer, I am not getting paid by them or sponsored to do this. I bought a bunch of these motors for a personal project that I'm building a special X class. So I wanted to give their motors a try as well as some competitors. So this is what the motor looks like, but I'll show you what it looks like when you get the product. So when you get the product, you get some stickers, they look pretty nice. You get the motor themselves, as well as some other little items in here. So the box feels really nice. It feels like you're opening up some fancy cologne. So let me pull this out. And there's the motor. You get a M6 nut. This holds on the propeller. And you got to remove this part. And then you get a packet of 2 extra C-clips. And that is used to replace the C-clip when you remove the motor bell, as I will talk about why you would want to remove the motor bell as well as open up the motor. And of course you get 3 wires, extended wires. These are 14 gauge wires and they need to be soldered onto the motor leads. These are just raw extended motor lead wires that have a little bit of solder in them on there, so pre-tinned. So it should make it easier to solder these wires on here. So I guess my first complaint of this motor is that these should have been already soldered on, as well as the competitors such as iFlight and T-Motor, they already had the leads installed. And it would just be easier to just have them installed and then you cut to length in terms of what you need. So that's the first thing I don't like about it. I guess, so the next thing is that, I guess what I noticed on this motor, so let's do a little teardown. Just to save some time, I have taken one apart. So this is what it looks like inside, as well as the motor bell. So with this motor, an interesting thing is that there is a little bit of coating on the stator. This is used to support the spray of cryo. So it basically cools down the motor to really cold temperatures so that the motor doesn't heat up as fast when you're going through like a hard race or just driving the motors really hard. I don't know what the active ingredient on this is. I think it's tetrafluoroethane, so it sounds really bad. I guess it's probably bad for the environment. So what happens is when the gas comes out of this thing, it gets really cold and really cools down this motor or the stator. So I decided to give it a try because apparently they say it increases performance. So I'll have to do some testing on that. And of course I have different oils right here. So these are of different viscosities. So they recommend that the yellow oil, which is the least viscous, so the least thickness, should be used for racing. And for easy stuff, you could, like easy flying, you would use the red oil, and then the blue is between. So how that works is you have this little sump cover that you have to remove from the bottom. So there are 3 screws right here that you would remove. And as a disclaimer, I want to let you know that you need to use a heat gun to remove these because these were Loctited by the factory. I don't know what strength Loctite, but it definitely wasn't the blue because I basically stripped the screws from this thing pretty much. But until I realized, oh yeah, I should use a heat gun to remove it. So use a heat gun and then get a cloth and twist very gently to remove these. Otherwise, you're gonna have to get a Dremel to slot this and remove. So not pretty. So that's my second complaint on this motor. And so once you have the sump cover removed, then you're gonna fill this up with a little bit to maybe I think 4 to 7 milliliters, so a couple drops. It's just to get the inside bearing coated. And supposedly when the motor gets powered up or spools up, there's some pressure. So I guess the oil should come up to the top bearing that happens to be open as well. So open EZO bearings. So that's what they say. I guess what I was told as well is that you don't even have to remove this thing. You could actually drip the oil through the hollow shaft, which is from here. So you need to remove this prop adapter with using an M4 driver. And there's a little hole right here and you can just drop some oil through there. And supposedly so it goes through there. But I guess it might be easier just to remove the sump cover because you probably want to inspect or just see how the motor works. So kind of interesting. I guess one interesting thing is that I don't see any like O-rings or seals, so I thought that I'm afraid that the oil would drip out everywhere. But you aren't supposed to fill up all the way because of the pressure. The oil, if there was an O-ring, I guess under higher pressure, the oil would actually just shoot out through the top, and that wouldn't be good. So you fill up a little bit and allows for some oil to, I guess, hold in the bottom right here. But I guess it'll be a little bit messier drone just for if you have too much oil. So it's kind of a weird, interesting design. As your traditional motor, this is one from iFlight. They just have your regular bearings that are sealed, and then you have your thing to retain the wires, and that's it. Open bottom. So I guess a second thing I don't like about this motor is I wish there was a better way to have these wires secured like they do with their iFlight motors. I think this is probably one of the unique things about them. But otherwise, the quality looks really good. I believe these are hand wound. They're very tight. They look pretty even, heavy duty. So I guess you're wondering, is this really a 40-25 size motor? So I have some digital calipers. So the 40-25 means that the first 2 digits would mean that the stator diameter is 40 millimeters and the height is 25 millimeters. So turn these on. We'll measure right here. And it is 40.75 millimeters, so a little bit bigger than what they advertise. Excellent. And of course, the height of the stator. This is 25.81 or 25.79 millimeters in height, so also a little bit bigger. Excellent. So yes, they're advertising this stuff correctly. And the reason why I bring this up, because in the e-skate world, sometimes the motors aren't accurately advertised in terms of stator height. They partly include like maybe the bottom part and some other stuff to get the stator height. But no, the stator height needs to be exactly of what this visible green stuff, as well as the diameter. So not the fudge numbers. And an interesting thing about the stator height, which is 25 millimeters, I guess most popular X-Class motors would be maybe 15 and a little bit wider. So a good one would be 42-15. So according to my calculations, let me double check, come on. So I ran the volume of the 4214 or 4215 as well as this one. Yeah, this motor ends up being about 51% larger. So guess what that means? More power. And based on their benchmark tests and everything like that from what they've released, yeah, this motor does about 10 to 11 kilowatts of power, which is insane. The other nearest competitor does about 6 kilowatts, so almost double the power. That's pretty awesome, actually. I guess 40%, but yeah, more power, so it's really good. And one thing about this motor, this is a 10-pole motor. So that means there are 10 magnets. So we'll start from here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And this is really important because if you're gonna be doing RPM filtering in beta flight, you need to set that value to 10. While typically you'd have maybe 14 magnets inside. So you wanna double check the magnets, of course, when you're doing RPM filtering, just to make sure it's done correctly. So anything else, I guess, with the motor? I guess on one of the groups, they were saying that this part of the prop shaft is a little soft and they don't have replacements at the moment. So maybe in the next revision, they will strengthen this part. But I guess, I mean, overall, to be honest, I mean, I'm definitely excited to test these out. They look really beefy. The quality is really good. I've been impressed by the support. So I can only say good things at the moment. But yeah, I'll be ready in a couple months because I'm still finishing up my custom drone. And of course I will have some other competitive motors out there to test that, just to make sure everything is validated. So of course, I mean, competition is always good. So yeah, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know. And as always, have a nice day.